Screen curtain off. Wizard's choice. Paladins. Press game mode on. Rocket fill. Tap to begin your adventure. Tap to begin your adventure. Alert. All you need to know. Scroll, read, and make choices. That's it. Your progress is automatically bookmarked. Double tap OK button. Life 10. Favor 4. Morale 0. Dimmed. The Paladins Book 1. Heading Level 3. Night of Wolves. By David Dalgleish. For this chapter, you play Jericho, a paladin, holy warrior, who follows the god Ashur, a god of protection, compassion, courage, and honor. Keep this in mind as you make choices for him. Now scroll, read, and make choices. Enjoy. Paladinsmap.jpg. Image. Jericho watched the river flow, the half-moon's reflection sparkling atop its waters, and from its darkness the creature emerged. Despite his training, despite discovering the crossing they'd used to harass the nearby village, the paladin felt his confidence falter. Be with me, Ashur, he whispered as it swam toward him, its eyes gleaming yellow. He could only see the top of its head, a brief stroke of its arms, and the curve of its spine. Every inch was matted with wet fur, and it shone slick in the moonlight. One of its strokes pushed its head fully above water, and he saw rows of teeth before they sank below. It was those teeth that had devoured 3 children and their mother 2 nights before. Water dripped from its long claws as it stepped upon the shore. It was those claws that had torn the entrails from their bodies so it might feed. A wolf man, bastard creation of the god Kark and an unwanted relic of a war centuries past. It approached on 2 legs, its body hunched, its muscles taut and frightening. Jericho wondered how useful his platymail would be against those claws and teeth. The armor would do nothing if the creature grabbed his head and ripped it off his shoulders. He watched from the cover of trees that grew to the water's edge, his right hand clutching the handle of his mace. Slung upon his back was his shield, which he kept there, deciding he needed at least one surprise come the fight. The creature stops for a moment and sniffs the air. He then continues along, only now at a slower pace. Jericho considers his options. At the Citadel, Jericho had been trained to face all opponents with honor. An ambush, or stab in the back, is considered shameful and he questions whether stealth would even work on such a creature. What should Jericho do? Step out boldly to face him. Button. Prepare for an ambush. Button. Prepare to backstab. Button. Prepare to step out boldly to face him. Life 10. Morale increases 1. Favor increases 2. Note on stats at the top. Favor is the approval of Jericho's god, Ashur, who is a good aligned god. Favor can be spent on spell-like power. Morale is a general stat that reflects as the character making good decisions toward their goals and values. Jericho, in his heavy plate armor, knew that stealth would not likely work against a creature with such keen senses. And ambush? Well, it was plain that the wolf man could smell him and so there was no element of surprise to be had. Jericho might as well meet this creature as his god Ashur would want him to. Jericho stepped out from the trees. The wolf man turned, and even with its hunched back, it still towered over him. Jericho's mace shook in his hand as those yellow eyes narrowed when meeting his own. Despite his fear, Jericho, the paladin of Ashur, stepped forward, now only a few feet from the creature. Continue. Button. Continue. Life 10. Paladins 1 intro.jpg. Image. Leave now, Jericho said. The village is under my protection, and I will kill you if I must. The wolf man laughed, its whole body shuddering. Its voice was deep and gravely. Jericho slipped his left arm back, grabbing the leather straps holding his shield. A single tug, and he'd have it at the ready. You want us imprisoned in the wedge, said the creature, referring to the vast land beyond the river. You wish us to starve and die, but there is food here, human, food. It lunged, accompanied by a thunderous roar. Jericho stepped to the side, avoiding its charge. His mace connected with its chest, but hit so much muscle and hair it only tore free a small chunk of flesh. The creature's claw slashed his armor, scraping the metal with a horrific screech. Jericho swung again, this time aiming for its head. The wolf man moved with amazing speed for its size, ducking underneath the attack and then grabbing Jericho's wrist. Jericho considers his options. His shield is on his back, his secret weapon. The shield was blessed by his god. With his free hand, he could pull his shield forward and call upon his god's strength. But was it time to ask for his god's help now or wait? Instead, he could twist his wrist in the wolf man's grip to attempt to free his mace and swing again. Finally, there was the option of punching with his free hand. The blow itself would probably not harm the creature, but perhaps he could knock his enemy off balance? What should Jericho do? Use his shield. Favor 3. Button. Twist his wrist. Button. Punch. Button. Use his shield. Use his shield. Favor 3. Life. Favor decreases 3. Morale increases 2. With its greater strength, the wolf man clutched Jericho's wrist and held his weapon back, leaving the paladin defenseless. Its drooling teeth snapped inward, aiming for his neck. Jericho pulled the straps. Down came the shield, its steel shining a soft blue as he cried out to his god. The wolf man's teeth snapped against it, and he felt his arm jolt at the contact. The creature howled, blood spurting from its nose. Back he cried, ramming with his shield. His heart hammered in his chest, and his eyes felt wide as saucers, but he'd survived the initial confrontation. The light of his shield grew, its power equivalent to the strength of his faith. The wolf man released his arm, instead protecting its eyes from the light. With it dazed and on the defensive, Jericho tried to finish it off. His mace came in for the side of its head, but his confidence soon turned to panic. The wolf man batted it aside with an arm, howled, and then attacked. The muscles in its legs were powerful, and it closed the distance with such speed he didn't have time to brace himself. Continue. Button. Continue. Life 6. Life decreases 4. The creature shoved aside Jericho's poorly positioned shield and then rammed into his chest. Jericho flew back several feet, halting when he hit a tree. The air blasted from his lungs, and his vision swam from where his head struck the bark. Blood trickled down his neck. Your towers stop nothing, said the wolf man as it stalked toward him, blood from its nose dripping across its teeth. We come to feast, foolish man, and we are greater than you humans. We are not dogs. We are not orcs. You cannot stop us. Jericho held his mace and shield before him, but his legs felt rubbery. He tried to focus, to anticipate the attack, but all he could do was stare at those yellow eyes and wonder how painful his death might be. Would he be alive when it ate him? His weight leaning against the tree, he vowed to fight until the wolf man had no choice but to lop off his head. Greet me with open arms, he whispered to Ashur as the wolf man crouched down, preparing another lethal charge. But instead of leaping, it tilted to the side, and a pained howl escaped its throat. Dark fire swarmed across its body, and blood soon followed. It turned to run. One of its legs twisted at an awkward angle, but then a sword punched through its skull. His armor was dark, the fire on his blades darker, so when Darius pulled his weapon free, he seemed a shadow blacker than the night itself. Ashur won't need to take you yet, Darius said as the blood sizzled in the fire of his blade. His blue eyes twinkled, and you can thank Karg for that. Jericho slung his shield on his back and then rubbed his forehead. A chuckle escaped his lips. I didn't know you were following me. Neither did the wolf. Jericho suddenly felt ashamed for showing weakness before his rival, so he pushed off from the tree and fought through his grogginess. Gingerly, he touched the wound on the back of his head, but it felt shallow. He'd have a knot there for several days, but that was better than being a wolf man's meal. Jericho joined Darius' side, and together they looked at the corpse. Do you still think the villagers are liars? Jericho asked. Of course, but not about this. Even liars tell the truth from time to time. Such cynicism. Darius laughed. He shook the crusted remains of blood off his weapon and then sheathed it, with its fire extinguished. It seemed Jericho could see easier in the darkness. It's merely truth. Jericho. I see the world as it is. You as how you want it to be. Doesn't take a scholar to know which of us will be right more often. Jericho used his foot to roll the wolf man onto its back. Its mouth hung open, and even dead, those rows of teeth gave him chills. He absently ran a hand along the deep grooves of his platymail. Did you hear what it told me? Jericho asked. I did. Who knows how many it meant? A pack could be 5, or 500. I suppose I should have left it alive long enough to question. As Darius's words trailed off, so did Jericho's attention. He looked at the corpse of the wolf man at his feet. The townspeople are scared and surely the sight of the vanquished culprit of the horrific murders would help calm them. If there's anything Jericho has learned out in the mission field, it's that calm people make far better decisions than frightened people. However, he also thought about the other side of the river, the Vile Wedge, where the wolf men are known to live. Perhaps more information would be helpful. With Darius at his side, they could gather important clues about the nature of the threat. Of course, to cross the river here without a boat is its own challenge. Jericho considers his options. Should he suggest they cross the river now for a reconnaissance mission? Or, should they take back the corpse of the wolf man now, the trophy that the people of town needed to see? What should Jericho say? Suggest they cross now. Take the wolf man body back. Take the wolf man body back. Take the wolf man body back. Life. 6. Morale increases 1. We will not swim across in armor, Jericho thought. He decided it would be wiser to return to town and allay the villagers' fears. Best we return the body now, Jericho said. We can get a boat to cross the river to see for ourselves if there is a pack of wolf men. I'm sure someone in town will lend us one. Into their territory? Are you mad? Said Darius. I've never considered you paladins of Asher the brightest of men, but I figured you would at least have more sense than that. Jericho shot Darius a wink. Asher calls the simple ones to do his work. We tend to accomplish more. Besides, if we go in the daylight, we could catch them sleeping. If they're crossing the river to hunt, they mustn't be too far. Darius shook his head at the corpse of the wolf man at his feet. They've killed only 4 people. That isn't a pack. That's hardly anything. This was a lone hunter. Nothing more. Now, as you said, let's get this corpse to town. Sighing, Jericho grabbed one arm, Darius the other. Together they dragged it across the leaves, through the forest, and to the town of Durham, so the people might see they had nothing left to fear. Continue. Button. Continue. Life. 6. Favor. 3. Morale. 4. Dimmed. The citadel loomed before him, looking tall and proud in the twilight. As the sun continued to fall, an uneasy fear set over him. Spider webs of cracks stretched higher and higher throughout the citadel's foundation. Fire burst upon the grass around it. Bones fell from the sky. As a great roar shook the plains, he heard a terrible crack, and then, Jericho's eyes snapped open. His heart pounded in his chest. Despite the chill of autumn, his body was soaked with sweat. Again, he wondered. What is it, Asher? What is it you need to tell me? For the past week he'd had the same dream, and always it felt like it ended unfinished. Dread settled over him come the morning, and at least twice he'd thought to return to the citadel to ensure everything was in order. But with Durham threatened by wolf men sneaking out of the Vile Wedge and across the river to feed, he couldn't dare leave his assigned post. As his senses slowly returned, he realized what day it was and groaned. He stayed in a small room of Jeremy Hangfield, the town's wealthiest occupant, the room freely given in exchange for protecting them from the various menaces of the wild. They were far from the great city of Mordina and her guards, patrols, and roads. Here there were outlaws, bandits, and now, creatures of the wedge. But fighting wasn't his sole duty, though sometimes he wished it was. Instead of putting on his armor, he donned his only pair of clothes that weren't blood-stained, a simple white tunic adorned with the golden mountain, symbol of his god. He clipped his mace to his belt but left his shield, feeling silly carrying it when not in armor. His congregation was small, and they gathered in the town square. When he'd first come, nearly half the village had shown up, out of curiosity more than anything. As the days passed, his numbers had dwindled, now just a faithful 20 or so. Wishing he could be fighting wolf men instead, Jericho preached the best he could, often relying on songs to break the monotony. As he neared the end, he saw Darius watching him from the back of the crowd. Asher be with you all, Jericho said, ending his final prayer. As the crowd dispersed, Darius remained behind, his arms crossed over his chest. He wore a brown tunic with a black belt, the drab colors making his long blonde hair stand out all the more. A smirk spread across his young face. Sometimes I wonder if Asher hopes to convert the lazy of Desrel, he said. Men who would be happy for an hour's sleep every third day, guilt-free. The comment stung. Twice Jericho had caught someone drifting off beneath the shade of a tree during his sermons. I guess I could scream and holler as if the world were on fire, Jericho said. That just isn't my style. Darius seemed unoffended. Jericho had witnessed the man's services, always held the day after his. The Dark Paladin was a far more animated spectacle, speaking with a passion he could never hope to match. He'd cry for strength, denounce cowardly sacrifice, and demand obedience in the face of a chaotic world. Order. Darius would shout at the top of his lungs. Bring this world order. Handsome, energetic, and passionate. His sermons gathered 50 to 60 men every time, a fact Darius never let Jericho forget. Your style should be what works, Darius said, tossing Jericho a waterskin, for he knew how draining such a performance was. Not what you feel like. Perhaps you should attend a few more of my sermons. You might learn something. Jericho drained half of it, then handed it back with a muttered thanks. How did Bobby take the news? He asked, referring to the father and husband of those killed by the wolf man. Come, said Darius, I'll show you. Together they walked down the dirt path, out from the village center. Wood houses sprang up on either side of them, fairly large due to the abundance of nearby lumber. At the end of the path was a post marking the entrance to the village. Hanging from ropes tied to its wrists was the body of the wolf man. In daylight it looked less fearsome. Its fur had dried out, much of it caked with blood and dirt. Flies buzzed about it, and it stank something unholy. All of its teeth were gone, and along its chest were at least 20 punctures new to Jericho. Evidently, the villagers had mutilated the corpse. Respect for the dead, particularly those who had been intelligent creatures, is a tenet of Asher. However, could Jericho blame them for venting their grief upon this monster? Either way, Darius had allowed this to happen. What should Jericho do? Chastise Darius. Button. Let it be. Button. What should Jericho do? Chastise Darius. Life. 6. Favor. 4. Morale. 4. Favor increases 1. You let him mutilate the corpse? Jericho asked, though he already knew the answer. He just hoped he might somehow be wrong. Do you know a better way to move on after the death of a loved one? Darius asked, lifting an eyebrow. Here is his beloved's killer, and though it is dead, I still gave him a chance to exact his revenge. It accomplishes nothing, and after a while, Bobby learned this as well, so I told him to take its teeth, and fashion a necklace so he might never forget. Bobby is a gentle soul, Jericho said, his stomach turning. He ran a hand through his red hair, his fingers gently touching the knot on the back of his head. It felt the size of his thumb. He once paddled his daughter, then came to me to ask if it were right. Meanwhile, half this village wallops their children at the slightest mistake. How could you let him do this? Because he spoke to me of wanting to die, Darius said, yanking Jericho closer. Would you counsel him love and forgiveness for the beast that ate his family? Would you promise him a better life in the world he wants to kill himself to enter? I gave him a desire for vengeance, and through that, a desire to live. You would have him remember his loved ones. Instead, I have him remember their murderer, and as long as he thinks of it, he is not wallowing in sorrow for himself and his family. Darius let go of his tunic. Continue, button. Continue, button. Darius let go. Continue. Life, 6. Favor, 4. Morale, 4. Dimmed. Bobby's organizing a group of men to go into the wedge. Darius said. They want us to go with them. Will you? Asked Jericho. The dark paladin shot him a wink. I gave him his desire for vengeance. Do you think I'd abandon him after that? Question is, will you come with us? I never am certain, given Asher's rather womanly tendencies. Will you come for revenge? What should Jericho say? Yes. No. Not yes, but to protect. Not for yes, but to protect. Not for revenge. But no. Yes. Vengeance is ours. Button. Yes. Vengeance is ours. Life. Favor decreases 1. Asher's womanly tendencies, thought Jericho. Time to teach this man of Kark that Asher knows righteous violence too. Vengeance is ours. I will paint my mace and shield with the blood of the wolf men, said Jericho. Darius stared wide-eyed at Jericho for a moment. Rather unexpected words from you, but a welcome surprise. Well said, my friend. Jericho felt guilt well up inside. Asher was not a god of vengeance. He had overcompensated. It is a necessary violence, he stammered. Darius laughed. Do not step back from your true and passionate words. Loosen your tongue and embrace what must be done. I will do my duty. That is all, said Jericho, turning his back to the dark paladin. Continue, button. Continue. Life, 6. Favor. They're just beasts, Darius said, slapping Jericho across the back. Filthy, vicious beasts. We'll put them down, just like any other rabid animal. Looking at the hulking form suspended by ropes, Jericho couldn't suppress a shudder. Any other animal, he muttered as Darius walked away. Before he could decide for certain, he trudged back to the village. The streets were barren, for with autumn speeding by, the men and women were harvesting every bit of nut, fruit, and grain they could find or grow. He realized Bobby had not been there for his sermon like he usually was, and this fact squirmed in his gut like a snake. Needing to talk to him, he found the man's home, and sure enough, he was there instead of out in the fields with the others. Morning, Jericho, Bobby said. He sat on his porch in a small chair, his shoulders stooped and his leathery skin pale. His eyes had a glazed, distant look to them. In his lap, he held a necklace of teeth. Missed you at the square, Jericho said, leaning against the house. Something the matter? Sure is. Care to talk about it? Bobby finally looked at him as his fingers worked over the sharp edges of the teeth. Darius said you tried to talk me out of going, he said. I'm only here to listen, friend. He said you'd say that too, but it'd be a lie. Jericho shook his head. I'm a servant of Asher, I don't lie. Bobby grunted and looked away. He cut himself on one of the teeth, but if he felt it, he didn't let it show. Faint smears of blood started to spread across the yellow and white. I heard her screaming, he said. I'd gone outside to piss, you know, that's all. And then, as I'm coming back, I hear her screaming. Just Susie, not my little girls or my boy. Do you think that means they died quicker? Maybe in their sleep? It didn't. Tears rolled down his face. Determined to remain true to his word, Jericho kept silent, letting the man say what he clearly needed to say. It didn't even eat them. Only my wife. Killed him for no reason, that fucking wolf. But Susie was alive when he was eating, and it left me alive too. Just looked at me and laughed. That damn thing laughed. I don't know if the one you killed was the one that came here. I'll never know, but I'll kill every last one I can find and hope each one is that bastard. And I'll laugh every time I kill one. Jericho considers his options. He might just offer his condolences, or he could support Bobby's desire for revenge in hopes of boosting his courage. Finally, he could discourage this path of revenge. What should Jericho do? Offer condolences, button. Support his desire for revenge, button. Discourage path to revenge, button. Support his desire for revenge. Life, 6. Favor decreases 1. You will have vengeance, said Jericho. You will pay your tragedy back upon those wolf scum many times over. Tears began to run down Bobby's face. Yes, he whispered fiercely. I will chop up their pups before their eyes. I hope they ain't so mindless as to not care. I hope they bark and yelp and. Enough, said Jericho, cutting Bobby off. Asher's disapproval settled on the paladin like a dark fog. We kill to protect, not to cause suffering. It's not right. You think I care about what's right? Bobby continues. I've lived right my whole life, and look what it got me. Someone ought to do something, so I will. No one else needs to see what I saw, and there ain't anything you can say to convince me otherwise. Jericho stepped back. He felt helpless, overwhelmed by the man's grief. What could he tell him? That Asher worked in mysterious ways? That it was her time, her fate to have her belly shredded, her flesh ripped and swallowed while she was still screaming? Continue, button. Continue. Life, 6. I'll pray for you, Bobby, Jericho said. Thanks, Jericho, but I don't think it'll do much good. He stood and carried his blood-stained necklace into his house. When he shut the door, Jericho stood there staring long after. 100 thoughts swirled through his head, but one in particular struck him with such certainty he knew he couldn't deny it. He couldn't let this happen again. His armor and shield were waiting for him in his room. There was a reason he carried them with him, a reason every paladin dressed for war. This was one of them. Come dusk, he'd join the rest. Come the night, they'd venture into the vile wedge, the land of orcs and monsters. Show scoreboard, button. Show reward, completed chapter 1, points, 2, coins, 1. Survived to the end of chapter 1. Reward, reward, completed chapter 1, points, reward, untouchable. Points, 10, coins, 3, finished a volume without ever dying. Chapters, back, show, go, live, end of the chapter, well played. Your total score is 200, earning you the reputation of, ellipsis, top rank, nice choice, the table below shows where you rank. Title, row 2, column 1, score, column, top rank, nice choice, 180 plus, column 2,